Welcome to another episode of Another Round. We've got a good one today. We've been out for a while, but topics to cover. We're going to go over the Jake Paul's new opponent that's just been announced. That's due to take place on the 6th of August. We're going to go over the massive heavyweight challenge between Pulev and Derek Chisora. And then we're going to be covering some future fights. And as ever, I'm always joined by my formidable co-host, Hamza Hanif. How's it going?
Great, bro. How are you?
Good, mate. How are your legs, by the way? Because we just...
My leg. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. How was your ankle?
Well, first and foremost, I want to say that it was great to see you in Miami, man. It's great to see you and the family. And the mosquitoes down there, though, I don't know what they're feeding them, if they're on steroids, I don't know what it is, but they've got something different in them. You know what I mean? Because I've got absolute sores all over my legs. I got tore up.
Speaking of steroids, mate, Jake Paul versus the new guy, because obviously Tommy Fury, I don't know what people make about that, but he couldn't get into America, and I genuinely believe he couldn't get into America. Has he ducked out of this fight? I'm not sure. There was a lot at stake for him because it was like a family. He was going to get disgraced by his family if he lost to Jake Paul.
He's going to get publicly shamed.
Mate, he was about to get disowned by the Fury family. So now we've got Hasim Rahman's son. Okay. Now, me and you know about this guy because we've been watching him fight, and we've watched some of his sparring, and we've watched him in his last fight in particular. Didn't look good. However, like you were saying, it's almost a perfect pick for Jake Paul because he looks the part. He's bigger than Jake Paul. He's a professional boxer. He ticks that box. He looks like he's good at boxing, and his dad was very good. His dad was a very good boxer. His dad fought some big names. So, you know, he respects, you know, he's from a good boxing family. So what do you think, mate? How do you see that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is actually a better fight for him, you know, especially in the States, because his dad is a legend in the sport of boxing. You know, had that epic sort of rivalry with Lennox Lewis. And we all remember the sort of the wrestling match in the television studio and stuff. So, his dad's a certified legend. You know what I mean? But I think this is actually a bit of a better fight for him, just because of the things that you've said. Aesthetically, he
looks like he's good.
He looks like he's carved out of stone. This bloke, and he's the son of a legend. His dad's on stage with him. He speaks very well as well. Like that's the thing. I always feel like the American, the American fighters always, they can sell you a fight because I've seen Hasim Rahman Jr. fight, and I was like, damn, he's not that great he's not where he should be for how many bouts he's had. He looks out of shape. He doesn't look like he's committed to the sport.
Mate,
and
I was just going to say, Trevor Bryan made me believe that he was a good boxer. I was thinking, I'm sure Trevor Bryan is terrible. I've seen him fight, and I think he's awful. And then I watched all the build-up to Trevor Bryan against Daniel.
They'll make you believe it.
Mate, he made me think he was going to freaking put one on him. I thought, geez, this is going to be a good fight. And then I watched it, and Trevor Bryan was just all over the place, getting pillared to post, just getting smashed. It was ridiculous. Sorry, mate. You go on, carry on what you were saying. I just wanted
I totally, I know what you mean with that, because it happens time and time again. With sort of, it was happening to AJ quite a lot, to the point where he actually pointed it out, where he was like, I hope you back it up, like, because all the American competition seem to do is come over here and talk a massive game, and they do really know how to talk themselves up, you know.
Charles Martin was the best.
That didn't age well. That did not age well. But yeah, so in regards to this fight, like, I think Jake Paul wouldn't have picked him at this point, you know, so close out from the fight. August 6th. I don't think he would have picked him if he had known, if you know what I mean. I think he's got he's got an ace up his sleeve here, and I think he's been matched against him in a fairly serious setting where he's confident. Oh, actually, I can beat you up because think about it. He's picked a guy that's taller than him, with more experience than Tommy Fury, and
bigger.
He should have more power than Tommy Fury because of the weight class that he's been competing at as well.
Yeah.
So it's one of those. I feel like this is going to be a fight where Jake Paul, I think he's going to look good in this fight. That being said, I really do hope that Rahman Jr. is about what he's saying, because he actually kind of, albeit with everything I've said, he kind of made me a believer in his sort of the way he was carrying himself and the way he was talking, because I think Jake Paul has this sort of tired bit where he always tries to bait people into making a bet with him, and people see him as a great trash talker. I don't see him as a witty guy. I just see him as a guy who says outlandish shit and that's controversial. And he always he wheels out this same tired bit where he's like, you have to make a bet with me. He did it to Eddie Hearn. He's done it. He's done it to Tyron Woodley. He's done it to Ben Askren. He's done it to everybody he's fought, essentially, And Rahman Jr. shut that down at the press conference. He said, "I don't give a fuck about the bet. I'm coming to fuck you up." And I really hope that he does, because he has all of the attributes too. You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens, but I'm interested.
Well, let's just say this, mate. I don't know if you've seen it, the footage of the sparring, but Jake Paul and Hasim Rahman Jr. sparred together. It's available you can search it on YouTube. You can find it. It's there. And the thing is that Hasim Rahman looks the part, but he's got no stamina at all. I don't know if he's on anything, but he died after a couple of rounds. He literally
should be.
After a couple of rounds, mate, he was absolutely gassed out, and Jake Paul was laying into him. I don't know if obviously they edit the footage a certain way, especially sparring. You can never tell if it's real or legit,
Yeah.
But
sparring, you have to take it with a pinch of salt, don't you?
In the sparring between Jake Paul and Hasim Rahman does not look. He's not fit enough. He looks like he's very fit, but when we watched that last fight he had where he got knocked out by the other guy's son, who was it?
Kenzie Morrison.
Tommy Morrison's son. Kenzie Morrison, mate, he wasn't even in the best of shape, but he was a lot fitter than Hasim Rahman. And Hasim Rahman was absolutely gassed after about 4 rounds. It was exhausting.
And that fight wasn't really fought at a particularly high pace. It's not like Morrison came at him like a barrel of hell. Like, he was kind of almost slightly winning that fight. It was very messy. It was very sloppy by both men. And then he just gassed. Like, he just absolutely gassed.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying he hasn't got heavy hands, because I'm pretty sure he's probably got quite a good punch on him, Hasim Rahman. And I would say probably the first 2 rounds maybe against Jake Paul is his best chance, because before he tires himself out, I think the first 2 rounds, if he comes in and backs up what he's been saying in the presser, what he's been saying in the build up to the fight, obviously he's selling the fight. I don't know how much he's making, but I do know that he said he's making the least amount of any of Jake Paul's opponents. I don't know how much he's making, mate, but I don't
basically what he was saying at the press conference was, that's how confident I am. I didn't negotiate. I didn't do anything. As soon as they sent me the contract, I looked at it and I said, this is easy work for me. Like, when we sparred, I was handicapped. You edited the video, and he spoke very well about that. So I really hope it's true, because I want him to come out and represent himself well. You know what I mean?
I want him to represent boxing. Do you know what I mean? I want him to come out.
I don't want him to take a paycheck and just lie down, because, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want him. He comes from a legendary family. His dad was an absolute warrior.
Yeah.
I want him to see him come out and really give it a go.
Correct. Exactly, mate. And this is the problem. Like, I don't want him to just come out for a paycheck. I don't like what Jake Paul said about, Tommy Fury now has to do another 20 fights to make how much he was going to fight against me. I don't like how he belittles everyone with money. I don't like the whole money thing where he talks down to people. I don't like how he's disrespectful to Hasim Rahman Sr. To me, that's out of order. Don't disrespect Hasim Rahman Senior, because you are never ever going to be or going to walk in the same shoes as him. You're never going to be nowhere near as good as him. So you can kiss goodbye to beating Canelo or beating anyone that's a world class. You might get to you might get some success, but you're about to get knocked out. Probably not in this fight, but probably the next one. And
there's a good chance if Hasim Rahman Sr. and Jake Paul got into a scuffle, that Hasim Rahman Sr., even at his age, would put serious damage on Jake Paul. You know what I mean? Like, it's absolutely ludicrous that somebody with Jake Paul's credentials can talk to a heavyweight champion like that. Call him all types of disrespectful things and just get away with it scot-free. It's ridiculous, and it shouldn't be happening. Jake Paul he's trying to be a fighter, and he's obviously trying to fight sort of follow a sort of the Floyd Mayweather, where he always talking about money, and I think it's a mix between Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather. That's where he's going for.
He reeks of entitlement. He's very insecure. His whole look, he's just screams insecurity to me. And he will get found out. He won't get found out in this fight because that Hasim Rahman Jr. guy can't fight. He's got no tank on him. But
ridiculous.
The heavyweights that we just saw, who I would say the best chins in boxing, arguably the best chins in boxing, like unbelievable. To be able to take that much power was unreal between Derek Chisora and Pulev. I thought that was a great fight, mate. It was a great fight. You were talking about the ring walk as well of Derek Chisora when he came in.
Bro, the ring walk for me was just chilling. Like, you were always on my mind by Elvis Presley. What a time to play it as well. And it's weird because when you think of that song, you don't think of it as a ring walk song, of a song that's going to be
but it worked.
Really,
it worked
so well, bro. It worked unbelievably well, and it was probably the sickest ring walk that he's ever done, and it blew me away. I loved it. It. What did you think of it?
Yeah, no, I thought it was great. I thought I think there's like some kind of message in there. There's obviously a hidden message in there. There's sort of obviously a lot of, and I just thought it was a good it was good. It was just a great fight, mate. From the first round, obviously this was a tactic by Don Charles, his trainer, was to be like, just target him to the body, because he kept throwing that right hand hook into Pulev, into his rib cage over and over again. I think he did like 7 right hooks in a row, and you could see Pulev's body to the body was physically red. It had gone red. And I thought, he's going to break his rib. That's what it looked like. Mate, he kept doing it over and over again. And I was like, this is obviously a tactic to tire him out. He was kept targeting the arms and the body. He was tiring him out constantly. And the guy would just not go down. He just wouldn't go down. And Derek Chisora was just throwing. Mate, in the first 4 rounds, I was so impressed by Derek Chisora. People who say that Derek Chisora is, you can visibly see the improvement in that guy. He's so much better now than he was, 5 years ago. His defense, 100%. Mate, the way he was doing that Mike Tyson peekaboo style defense when he was ducking down.
That was incredible.
Mate, he dodged so many shots in the first 3 rounds, mate. He was amazing. I was really impressed with Derek Chisora. And I was surprised that neither of them went down there. Fucking hell, they were hitting each other with bombs after bomb after bomb. Couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
It was a
and they were both at times in serious trouble as well. At different times in the fight, both of them looked very badly hurt, and both of them had the courage, the stamina, the character to come back and just produce an absolute heavyweight classic. It was amazing.
I noticed as well, right, that Derek Chisora, when he got in trouble, he'd lean on the ropes. So that was obviously a bit of a trick that he was using when he got caught, and he got caught with a good one, and he felt the power. He gave himself some time off on the ropes and just tried to, he shelled up and tried to basically give himself some time. I noticed that was I mean, he's improved a lot. He used to just come forward and take it so much punishment, and he didn't care because he always had that overhand right. But this time, he took a lot less punishment and he gave out a lot more, and his stamina was amazing. Those guys went 12 rounds. You know, to say that Pulev, you know, he's 41. How old is he? He's old now.
I think Chisora is 38 and Pulev is 40.
Yeah, it's amazing, mate. 40 years old and 38 years old. And he's given up drinking. I noticed after the fight he was on the bike. I don't know if you saw that. He just did 12 rounds, and then he was on the exercise bike doing a warm down. Mate, very impressed with Derek Chisora, and I feel like he's a top 15 still. He'll give anyone a go, even against Usyk. You see him against Usyk, mate. His fight against Usyk.
Yeah,
great. It was great against Usyk. I thought that's the way that Joshua's got to come in and fight Usyk. He's got to come in and be ballsy and just not care about the counters. He's got to come in and just
crash the rage, force the fight, and try and hurt him. You know?
It's called.
No, but yeah, I just to add a little bit to what you said there, like I totally agree with you, man. Like Chisora is aged like a fine wine. Like he's completely committed himself to the sport of boxing, and he's sacrificing outside of the ring by living the lifestyle, by giving up drink, and it shows inside the ring. How much of a better fighter he is. Like he's 38 years old and he's never looked better. So that just shows you the commitment that he has to the sport. He's just one of the things I want to give Pulev some credit as well, because Pulev himself was hurt badly in that fight. He was bust up, he was marked up, and he I think towards the end of that fight, he was starting to trap Chisora on the ropes. I think there was earlier moments in the fight where, especially in the last round, I thought Chisora was on the ropes and he didn't have much choice of where he could go. Pulev, his long range work is incredible. Like the way he was always composed. He was always throwing shots from distance. And he was eating some monster right hands, and he always looked composed. I mean, some of them shots where the slow-mos, where the sweat flies off his head. Yes. And you think, wow, man, Derek Chisora hits you so hard. He spins your neck around, and Pulev was there the entire time. It was an extremely close fight, man. Both men, I think, went to the well. It was astounding to me how deep that well was for both men. Do you know what I mean? These are two big boys, and they're older as well, and they fought at a pace that was just phenomenal, man. I loved it.
See, what I noticed about Pulev is that when he gets hurt, he kind of smiles and sticks his tongue out, which is what he did with Anthony Joshua. When Anthony Joshua caught him with that first, I think it was a hook, and then obviously before he did the uppercut and really chinned him, he was smiling because he knew he got hurt. And he did that against Derek Chisora, and he held on. He held on. So you saw him get hurt, and you saw him held on. But going back to what we were saying about Derek Chisora being in the best condition, I think David Haye doesn't get enough credit for that, because if you remember, David Haye came in and trained him, and he basically turned his life around. Because David Haye's always been in amazing shape and always been really conditioned, and always like, you know, he's living the life. He's walking and talking the life. You know what I mean? And the way that he's conditioned Derek Chisora to completely change his life around. He doesn't drink. He doesn't eat like takeaways every night anymore. Like he really is committed to the game. Do you know what I mean? So,
I love that bond between them as well, because obviously it was such a bitter rivalry that they had. Brawling outside the ring. But do you remember the fence when they were like facing off and they were like separated by like a steel fence, and you're like, oh my god, this is gonna go off. At any minute, this is going to go off.
At one stage, it felt like Derek Chisora was just throwing a table at every press conference. Just literally, he's literally sat down and he just was like, I've had enough. Threw a table.
The table goes.
I'm pretty sure him and David Haye had a few like bust ups in the press conferences and the presses and everything, winding each other up. But yeah, it's good that they kind of like are friends now, and that often happens. Like when you have a fight with someone, you just become like mates afterwards. But
You
yeah,
respect them as well because I think you
respect it for it,
realize, oh, I'm a nutter to take it to this level. Like, you
yeah,
know what I mean? To put myself through what I've just done, and you've matched me, you've came with me the whole way, and I
yeah,
think
yeah,
at the
yeah,
end of that is a grudging respect. You know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, that was an amazing fight. And talking of legends, mate, Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. So Conor Benn, who is obviously Nigel Benn's son, and Chris Eubank's son are fighting, and it's just been announced October the 18th. I would assume it's at the O2. I don't know if the venue's been announced yet, or probably Wembley Stadium, because it's a mega fight. Them two.
Yeah, could be an outdoor stadium. Could be an outdoor
Could
stadium.
be an outdoor stadium. Conor Benn is like obviously the golden child for Eddie Hearn right now. Used to be Anthony Joshua, but now currently it's Conor Benn, who's like the cash cow, who's kind of moving up the ranks. Chris Eubank Jr. is a bit of a Marmite fire in that people either love him or hate him, and he's rubbed people up the wrong way a lot of times. But he's also been working with Roy Jones Jr., who I respect massively, who was a great fighter, and obviously his knowledge of the game. He's a great trainer, and he's got him in the right place. He's got him in a better place than what he was before. So that's going to be a great fight. Size-wise, I'll have to look at it. I'll have to go back and look at it because I think Chris is a bit bigger, isn't he? Isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's quite like I love the fight because the Chris Eubank Senior and the Nigel Benn rivalry. That's my favorite British rivalry of all time.
Yeah, me
I
too.
love that rivalry, man. Like they were on shows together, giving each other jip, and when they fought, it was just a classic. You know what I mean? And it's I like the fight for that reason. I like the fight because I'm a fan of both fighters' styles. You know, I think Chris Eubank Jr., I think absolutely agree with you. I think Roy Jones Jr. himself is a bit of an unorthodox character, and I think that's the kind of person that really resonates with Jr. And I think he's got him in a place where he is firing on all cylinders at the moment. I don't see how the fight stacks up because Conor Benn's a welterweight and he's a big welterweight, no doubt. You know, he looks fantastic at the weight. It's not like he's struggling and he looks like a skeleton or anything. But Chris Eubank, I've always thought he was a big middleweight. And he's fought at super middleweight as well.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, he didn't win any sort of recognizable world title. He won the IBO, which isn't necessarily a recognized world body. But he fought George Groves. He fought in the Super Six. He beat De Gale at super middleweight. So he's a big guy, man. And I think I would have liked to have seen Conor Benn sort of go the traditional route, sort of forget all that dad stuff, man. Leave that in the past and go your own path, go your own route. I would have liked to have seen that because there's loads of amazing matchups at welterweight for him. You know, so
it's quite surprising.
I'm a fan of the fight, and I will of course be watching it, but it's not the route that I would have, advised, or not the route that I would have sort of foreseen.
I agree, mate. And also, I don't know if you saw this, but during the Chisora fight, Conor Benn was at that fight and they interviewed him about fighting Chris Eubank. And he said, no, I don't know anything about it. No contract's been signed. So as far as I know, that fight's not going ahead right now. I don't know if you saw that. That was on one of the interviews. He was ringside. It was right next to he was obviously like one row back from the ring.
From Chisora, yeah.
Yeah. So it was surprising. I'm surprised that he's gone that route. Obviously, I'm assuming that Chris Eubank Jr. is gonna take a hydration clause and he's gonna come down weights and they're gonna meet in the middle. I would assume so, because otherwise it's gonna be, Conor Benn's not gonna be able to get up to super middleweight. So obviously they're gonna meet somewhere in the middle. So that's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be interesting. Chris Eubank has got phenomenal output. Chris Eubank Jr., I mean, he's got phenomenal output. His work rate is incredible, especially under Roy Jones. He's becoming a bit more tactical. His tactical gameplay is better now under Roy Jones. He knows how to play the game better. And Conor Benn is obviously booming with confidence because he's just piling through everyone he faces right now. I agree. It's probably a little bit of too soon. Eddie Hearn is getting a bit of a reputation for kind of like putting people in with very tough, right? Putting people in the deep end very early. I mean, if you can compare it to like the Charlo brothers, who have just been announced, who are always just playing.
You can't even really compare it, can you?
They're always in the kiddie pool, mate. They don't take risks. They're not really. They're well protected. They're not really stepping out with anyone big on anyone like, even the people that do fight, they kind of have problems with. So I don't know. I think it's a step too soon, maybe for Conor Benn, but we'll see. Maybe they've got a game plan. Maybe they know, like Jake Paul, they've figured it out and they know what they're doing with that one. So we'll see. He probably sees a week.
I think there's big money in it, because most fight fans look, and especially if you're a British fight fan, you look back at Conor Benn and Nigel Benn, and you look back at Senior, and with wonderment at sort of what they did. Chris Eubank Senior, 19 world title fights, man, just certified British fighting royalty. Nigel Benn, the Dark Destroyer, just an absolute legend, went over to America, smashed everybody essentially over there. And it's just, I think there's still huge name value, like sort of cash value attached to those names. So I think they're coming together while they still can to make that money. It's just not necessarily a fight that I think even weight-wise stacks up. It's not a fight that, again, it's not a traditional fight, really.
Again, like you were saying, to back up your point, there's a lot of value in a name. And like we see with Hasim Rahman Jr., would he have got that fight with Jake Paul if his name was Hasim Smith? No, he wouldn't. There, because that's his dad's reputation that he's fighting off.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's the same with Chris Eubank and Conor Benn. They probably shouldn't be fighting each other. They're not in the same weight division, but boxing is entertainment. It makes a lot of money. It's going to sell a lot of tickets. It's going to put a lot of people in seats. So, yeah, I'm excited for it. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a good one. Is there anything else that you wanted to cover quickly? Because I know we've been out for a while. There was something else.
Yeah, so I wanted to very quickly introduce a segment called Friday Flashback Fight Night. I went with Friday there. I'm sorry about that. Flashback Fight Night.
Yeah.
And the fight night that I want to talk about is Amir Khan versus Danny Garcia. And it's when Amir Khan defended his WBA and his WBC super lightweight titles. I don't know if you remember this fight, man, but it was an absolute war. And it was a great fight. And at the time, when Danny Garcia won, it was a massive upset. Not so much when you look at what Danny Garcia ended up doing in his career. A bit of a champion himself. And fought some worthy champions. Fought Errol Spence, fell short, but gave a good account of himself. But I want to go through sort of a brief rundown of the fight itself. So the actual fight itself, Amir Khan, it was the absolute best of Khan. The frightening hand speed, in and out. Just that movement.
Pre-chin as well. Pre-chin, pre-dodgy chin.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But that's why you couldn't take your eyes off it, though, because you knew that Khan was so fast with his hands, that he was busting up people. And those rapier-like shots, they opened up a cut over Garcia's eye in the second round. It was all going wrong for Garcia. But in the third round, the tide sort of shifted. Amir became sort of less mobile. He wasn't moving around as much. He was engaging with Garcia. I don't know if he was becoming overconfident because of the cut. But Garcia caught him with a monstrous left hook. And it's a left hook that hit him on the neck. If that shot had been a couple of inches this way, that would have been it, And Amir Khan got up, I think it was like 20 seconds towards the end of the third round. And he got up and he was out. He was out on his feet, And the fourth round, he was immediately assailed again by Danny Garcia. Garcia was chomping at the bit. He raced across the ring, dropped him. Didn't drop him. Give him a standing 8 count. And one thing I want to say is Amir Khan. You can say whatever you want about his chin. You can say whatever. He has the heart of a lion, because he took that standing 8 count. He looked dazed. He looked beat up, but he called Garcia forward. He waved him on, and they just exchanged. They just had an absolute exchange where they were both throwing for each other's chins. Now, Amir Khan's never going to win that type of fight, and he caught another left hook. He went down again, bravely rose again, and Kenny Bayless, the referee, waved it off. And it was a massive upset at the time. Everyone was shocked. I remember watching the fight, and I was like, "What? How has Danny Garcia won this fight?"
Yeah.
And looking back on it now, it's aged really well for Khan. But I just wanted to talk about that fight because it was a brilliant fight night.
Absolutely, mate. And I think one thing that always stands out about Amir Khan when he first came onto the scene was just his hand speed. It was unreal. There's only a few fighters that I can think of in my mind with that kind of speed. There's probably like Manny Pacquiao, Amir Khan, and I think Prince Naseem Hamed.
Prince Naseem Hamed, yeah.
Mate, Prince Naseem Hamed was unreal speed. And I think Amir Khan was like a kind of like a second coming to him because his hand speed was unreal. I'll always kind of have more of a favorite towards Prince Naseem Hamed just because I loved his overall character, his ring walks, everything that he did. Like I had massive respect for him because he was so cocky and it was great to see. But that was a great fight. Danny Garcia was kind of put on the map with that as well. That was kind of like great stature as well. And Amir Khan always got those big fights, and that's what made him a well-known name in America as well.
But it was because of the excitement that he brought, which I think sort of when you're a little bit removed from that actual excitement, it's hard. You look at his record and you look at some of the ways he's been knocked out, and I think sometimes you don't give him that respect. You don't give him that sort of. There was a reason he was fighting Maidana. There was a reason he was fighting Zab Judah. There was a reason he was fighting Danny Garcia in Vegas, headlining these big shows as a British man from Bolton. You know what I mean? There was a reason because he brought such excitement.
Just to go off what you're saying, like people don't understand why Derek Chisora keeps getting these big fights, why he keeps getting these big names and these big opportunities, and he's had 7 losses, or more than that even, and it's because he's entertaining. And people don't realize boxing is it's an entertainment sport. And people that are interesting to watch, people want to watch. I mean, that's why Derek Chisora, his name is literally War Chisora for a reason, because he gives it every fight. You know what I mean? And he just keeps going forward. And same with Amir Khan. Amir Khan was interesting for the reasons, for his speed, his hand speed was phenomenal. Yeah.
Boxing and fighting is about an entertainment. It's not about so much about being unbeaten, like about protecting your all at all costs, and sort of having a very defensive style. Yes, of course, it is the sweet science. It is hit and don't be hit. But these fighters, like the Chisoras, like the Amir Khans, they will go down in history for a different reason to why Floyd Mayweather will, but we should never sort of take away those nights where these guys laid it all on the line and had us glued to the screen. And I'm always glued to the screen when Derek Chisora fights, and I'm always glued to the screen when Amir Khan fought. So yeah, that's a really interesting point that you brought up there, man. I'm glad you did that.
Going back to your saying, about entertaining fighters, when you compare someone like Tyson Fury compared to no disrespect to Huey Fury, but he's just not on the same level of entertainment. You know what I mean? He's just not interesting to watch him fight. He's a great fighter in himself. He'll never be one of the elite, but he's just not as entertaining. And I'm sorry if that offends people, but it's just the truth. You know what I mean?
No, so, I don't think many people will disagree. Tyson Fury is one of the most entertaining heavyweights out there, probably of all times. He's in that. I
don't know about all time.
That conversation. But he's in that conversation where I don't think Huey Fury is. I don't think anybody's being like, oh, it's Ali, it's Lennox Lewis, it's Mike Tyson, it's Huey Fury. Where Tyson Fury they are kind of.
Yeah. No, he definitely. I would say one of the most entertaining fighters of this era, Tyson Fury. I'd definitely say that. And yeah, it's going to be Deontay Wilder's coming back. Allegedly, we don't know if he is or not. I hope he does, because that'll be a great. If Derek Chisora fights Deontay Wilder, that'll be
Bro, we
amazing.
almost forgot to. What is your opinion on that? Because that was a mad call out at the end of that.
Honestly, I like that fight. A lot of people are like, "Oh, Derek Chisora is taking too much punishment," and we all know Deontay Wilder has some of the most power in all the way. He's allegedly got the most power. So you only need one of those to connect to Derek Chisora. But at the same time, I love the way Derek Chisora fight Pulev. Pulev's a lot more technical than than Deontay Wilder. His footwork is a lot quicker. His hands, his technical nous, just the fact that he's been in the game for so long.
Pulev, you can tell he's so well schooled as well. The way you can tell he's got a deep amateur record.
Yeah, you can tell he's got a deep amateur record. Like when you see with a lot of these kind of Eastern European guys, the Russians, the Ukrainians, they've all got huge amateur backgrounds, especially even South America, the Mexicans, because you see them and that they're war, what's the word? Like hardened with it because they've been doing it.
Yeah, they're sort of battle hardened.
Battle hardened, that's what I'm looking for, mate. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's going to be a really interesting fight, especially Deontay Wilder's been out for so long. He might see that as an easy fight because Derek Chisora is 38, nearly 39. He might think, oh yeah, this is a good one for me to come back and bounce into. But actually, I think Derek Chisora should be respected a lot more now, even though he's got so many losses on his record. He's a different animal. He's a completely different fighter than he was 5 years ago, even 5 years ago.
No, 100%, 100%. Yeah. Like, I think that there's two sides to this. I think you have to give Chisora massive respect for going after somebody like Wilder, who actively not very many people want to fight him because it's a 12-round fight, and Tyson Fury, if you don't knock Wilder out, he's probably going to knock you out. Like Tyson Fury pretty much showed that in his fight. Like if you don't knock him out, he's probably going to knock you out in that 12 rounds. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think stylistically it's a bit of a bad matchup for Derek Chisora because you know what it is? Mm-hmm. He's not known for putting guys out like that. And the problem is as well, is he backs up to the ropes quite a lot. And if you're backing up to the ropes in a straight line, and you've got a guy who can hit as hard as Wilder, I just think stylistically that fight, it doesn't make a huge deal of sense. I think Chisora is a warrior. I think he's a hell of a lot better than what he used to be because of his commitment and the things that we've covered. But I just think stylistically, the way that he fights, he's going to get hurt by Wilder, I think. But
well, let's say this. It doesn't make a lot of sense stylistically, but it sells a lot of tickets.
Yeah,
it makes a lot of money.
It does.
Same like we were saying with Conor Benn and Chris Eubank. It's not stylistically the best fight for Conor Benn, but it's going to make a lot of money. And that is what is important. Unfortunately, with the promoters, that is what they care about. So I can see it happening. I can see it going. And I think Derek Chisora, as long as he gets his game plan right, it's going to be an interesting fight. If he doesn't really prepare well, you saw Tyson Fury in the first fight, particularly when he was still coming back out of his 3 years out. He was very cautious of Deontay Wilder's right hand, and he was lifting his left hand up to block every time he was trying to block the jab, the 1-2s.
Yeah,
he was waiting for that right hand. In the second and third fight, he was different because he was sort of, he came in and said he was going to come and throw the kitchen sink at Deontay Wilder and really come at him, and he did because he realized in the 12th round, if he backed him up, he didn't like it, and he wasn't very good fighting on the back foot.
A guy like Chisora, just not because of skill. I'm not talking about skill. I'm just talking about physically, size-wise. I think it's easier for a guy like Wilder to tee off on them than it is for a big, tall guy who can lean right back.
Yeah, that's a very good point. But also another point about that is just the fact that Fury's moves like a middleweight, like he's very fast.
100%. Yeah, he's very unique. Very unique.
Very unique. So yeah, no, I like that fight. You're saying it's probably not good for him. I'm not sure. We'll see, mate. But there's a lot of good fights in store, and I'm looking
whatever he does, I will be watching. That's for
exactly,
sure.
Mate. I'll be watching too, mate. And that's been good. I've enjoyed that, mate. Well, that's been another episode of Another Round, my friend.
Jack Dempsey, there's no one like I'm from their claw. There's no one that